Why would a daughter demand her inheritance while her father was still alive to hear it? That was the question, burning in William Johnson's mind, the evening his only child turned their quiet living room into a battlefield. The house that had carried decades of laughter, sacrifices, and memories suddenly trembled under the weight of words sharper than knives. It was supposed to be an ordinary Sunday. The aroma of Angela's roast still lingered faintly in the air, and the family photo above the fireplace caught the glow of the lamp. Yet the peace shattered the moment Monica's voice rose, her words laced with fury. "Dad, I need the money now, not when you're gone!" The porcelain mug slipped from Angela's hands and crashed onto the hardwood floor, spilling coffee across the rug. She froze, her breath shallow, her eyes darting between husband and daughter. William sat stiffly in his armchair, the inheritance papers clutched so tightly in his grip that the pages bent. Monica's face was painted with desperation and anger. Her manicured nails tapped against the edge of the sofa as though keeping time with her heartbeat. Beside her, Darius lounged with careless confidence, legs spread, arms resting across the couch. His smirk widened when William didn't respond immediately. "Come on, Will," Darius said, his tone dripping with mockery. "She's your only daughter. What's a few thousand to help us out?" William's jaw tightened. His chest rose and fell in heavy rhythm, carrying years of swallowed frustration. A few thousand. Last month it was gambling debts. Before that, shopping sprees. 3 years of bailing you two out, and still you stand here as if my retirement fund is your bank account. Angela stepped timidly into the center of the room, a dish towel twisted between her hands. "Please, everyone, just calm down. We can talk this through." But Monica whirled on her mother, her voice cracking like glass. "Talk? What's there to talk about, Mom? He's sitting on hundreds of thousands while we drown in debt." William's reply was quiet, but each syllable carried the weight of disappointment. "Debt you created. Debt from your choices." The family photo on the mantel slipped forward, landing face down with a dull thud. None of them moved to lift it. The silver frame reflected only emptiness. Old man Darius sneered, leaning forward, elbows on his knees. "You're not getting any younger. Why not share while you can still enjoy the gratitude?" William's stomach turned at the disrespect. 43 years of hard work, double shifts, missed birthdays, and canceled vacations, he had given his family everything. Yet now his daughter and her husband dared to treat him like a miser clinging to coins. "Dignity," William said, his voice low but steady. "That's what I worked for, to retire with dignity." Monica laughed, the sound bitter and sharp. "What's dignified about hoarding money while your daughter suffers?" His gaze swept over her polished jewelry, the designer bag tossed carelessly on the sofa, the fresh highlights in her hair. Even Darius's sneakers looked brand new. Their version of suffering looked remarkably comfortable. "Your suffering," William said, each word deliberate, "is self-inflicted." Silence pressed into the room. Angela's lips parted as if to speak, but no words came. Monica's eyes burned with rage, and her voice rose again, louder, harsher. "Selfish, greedy, unloving, that's what you are." Each accusation struck like a blow. William's hands trembled, but not from weakness, from resolve. "Get out," he said. Darius stood, his expression darkening into menace. "You enjoy this, don't you? Watching us struggle, feeling powerful. You think this makes you a man?" William pushed himself up, his joints aching, but his will unshaken. He walked to the front door and swung it open. The cool night air drifted in, carrying the scent of honeysuckle and the distant laughter of neighbors. Families outside were enjoying peace while his own was unraveling. "Both of you," he said, his voice firm, "out of my house." Monica's eyes widened in disbelief. This house, the one Mom helped pay for. The house I grew up in. You can't just throw me out. Watch me." For a long, tense moment, neither she nor Darius moved. They lingered, waiting for the familiar compromise, the check written in desperation to restore a fragile peace. But William didn't waver. He had reached the end of his rope. Monica finally grabbed her purse, her movements sharp and angry. "You'll regret this, Dad. When you're old, when you're sick, when you need someone to take care of you, remember tonight." Her heels struck the hardwood floor like gunfire as she stormed out. Darius lingered at the threshold, his eyes narrowing. "Family doesn't abandon family. This isn't over, old man." The door slammed behind them, rattling the windows. The silence that followed was heavier than their shouting. Through the glass, William watched their car tear down the driveway, tires squealing. His hand rested on the doorknob, frozen in place. Angela stepped beside him, her voice trembling. "William." He turned slowly, scanning the wreckage of their living room. The Persian rug stained with coffee, the inheritance documents scattered like fallen leaves, the family photo overturned on the floor. 43 years, he whispered almost to himself. All the overtime shifts, all the double jobs, for what Angela bent down, gently lifting the photo. Her fingers traced the smiling face of 5-year-old Monica, gap-toothed and innocent, perched on her father's shoulders at the county fair. The memory pressed into both of them, painful, in its contrast to the woman who had just walked out the door. "She's struggling," Angela said softly. "Struggling." William's voice cracked sharper than he intended. Every lie, every casino trip, every reckless choice, those are hers. "I won't fund them anymore." Angela's silence was heavy with grief. William straightened the photo on the mantel, the reflection catching the light. He stared at the innocent child in the picture and felt a sorrow deeper than anger. The room felt like a battlefield after the fight was over, but William knew this was only the first shot in a war he never wanted. The words of his daughter echoed in his mind like a curse. "You'll regret this." And as he closed the door, locking it against the night, William wondered if she was right. Father's Day arrived with a quiet that felt almost unnatural. William sat on the porch with the Sunday paper, the weight of the previous week pressing against his chest. The silence from Monica was louder than any of her angry words. For 3 years, she had never gone more than a few days without calling, demanding, pleading, or accusing. But since that night, she had vanished from their lives. Angela moved about in the kitchen, the soft clink of dishes floating through the open window. William clutched his coffee mug, now lukewarm, savoring the stillness. Yet even in that peace, unease lingered. He wondered if this was truly calm or only the pause before another storm. A low rumble broke his thoughts. He lowered the newspaper and saw a brown UPS truck slowing in front of the house. His brows furrowed. They hadn't ordered anything. Sunday deliveries were rare. The driver hopped out, glanced at his handheld device, and lifted a medium-sized box from the truck. He walked briskly up the driveway. "William Johnson?" he asked. "That's me," William replied, setting the paper aside. "Happy Father's Day, sir. Someone must think highly of you to pay for Sunday delivery." The driver handed him the electronic pad to sign, then returned to his truck without further words. William turned the box over in his hands. It was about the size of a shoebox, surprisingly light, no more than 2 pounds. The label showed nothing but generic shipping information. No return address, no sender's name. "Who's it from?" Angela's voice floated from the doorway, curious but cautious. She wiped her hands on a towel, her eyes fixed on the package. "No idea," William said, carrying it inside. He set it on the coffee table where the inheritance papers had scattered just 6 days earlier. For a moment, the sight of the clean table made him think of how fragile normalcy really was. Angela approached, her brow knit. There's no return address. Nothing. Her gaze sharpened. Wait. She bent closer, her fingers brushing the cardboard. William, don't open it. He frowned. Why not? Look, she whispered. See the holes along the edges. William leaned down. Tiny punctures dotted the cardboard. Holes so small he might have missed them if she hadn't pointed them out. His stomach sank. They're breathing holes, Angela said, her voice trembling, which means something alive is inside. William froze, eyes locked on the innocent-looking box. The morning sunlight no longer felt warm. It painted the room in an eerie glow as if warning them. Then it came. A faint sound from within. A rustle, soft but undeniable. Both of them stiffened. The sound ceased, then returned again, followed by the faintest hiss. Angela clutched his arm, her nails digging into his shirt. Did you hear that? William nodded, throat tight. The hiss grew longer, louder, unmistakably alive. His hands shook as he pulled out his phone. Muscle memory guided his fingers even as his mind scrambled. 911. What's your emergency? We have a package delivered this morning, William said, his voice unsteady. It has breathing holes. We hear hissing inside. Something's alive in there. The dispatcher's tone sharpened. Sir, can you describe the sounds? William glanced at Angela. Her wide eyes gave him courage to speak the thought he dreaded. Hissing, like a snake. The line crackled with rapid typing. Stay calm. Officers are being dispatched to your location. Maintain a safe distance. Do not touch or move the package. Can you wait in another room? We're about 6 feet away. We'll keep our distance. Good. Officers should arrive within 10 minutes. Do not attempt to open it. The line went silent, except for the dispatcher's typing. William hung up, his heart pounding. 10 minutes suddenly felt like an eternity. Angela whispered, "Who would do this?" William's jaw clenched. The answer was too obvious, but saying it aloud would make it real. The timing, the anonymity, the Father's Day delivery, it all pointed in one direction. The box rustled again, more insistent this time. Whatever was inside was awake now, shifting, agitated. The hiss returned, longer, sharper, curling through the air like a warning. Angela backed away until her shoulders pressed against the wall. This isn't a gift, she whispered. This is a threat. William stood rooted in place, his eyes never leaving the box. The thought that his daughter might have planned this gnawed at his heart. Love and betrayal twisted together, almost unbearable. The sound of car doors outside jolted him. Through the window he saw a police cruiser pulling into the driveway. Relief surged through his veins so sharply his knees nearly buckled. The doorbell rang, authoritative and sharp. William opened it to find a tall officer standing firm, his uniform crisp, his gaze steady. "Mr. Johnson," he said, "I'm Officer Reeves. We received your call about a suspicious package." "Yes," William said, stepping aside. "It's in the living room." Angela hovered in the hallway, her apron still on, her hands knotted tightly together. "You did the right thing," Reeves assured her, his voice calm but commanding. He pulled on latex gloves and approached the coffee table. "When did this arrive?" "About 30 minutes ago," William said. "Sunday delivery. No return address." Reeves crouched, examining the box. His expression grew serious. "You heard hissing, yes," Angela whispered. Reeves nodded grimly. "I've seen this before. Usually non-venomous, but still dangerous. I'll call animal control." He radioed in a request, his voice clipped efficient. William and Angela exchanged a glance, the weight of unspoken fears pressing between them. Minutes crawled by until another vehicle pulled into the driveway. A white van with animal control markings. Relief washed over Angela's face, but William's heart remained heavy. He knew the truth, this wasn't a prank from strangers. This was personal. Within 20 minutes, the specialist lifted a sleek 3-foot corn snake from the box. Its scales glistened under the light as it coiled in the handler's gloved hands. "Beautiful specimen," the man remarked. "Harmless, non-venomous. Someone paid good money for this." Angela shuddered. "Why would anyone send this to us?" The officer's gaze sharpened, his unspoken question heavy in the air. Who indeed? And as the van drove away with the snake secured, William stood staring at the empty coffee table, his heart colder than it had ever been. This was not the end. It was the beginning. The police car pulled away, and the animal control van followed, carrying the snake in its secure container. Silence settled once again over the Johnson household, but it was not peace. It was the kind of silence that hides unspoken dread. Angela busied herself in the kitchen, scrubbing the counters with unnecessary force. William remained in the living room, staring at the faint marks left on the coffee table where the box had been. It was not just a delivery. It was a message. He lowered himself into his chair, reached for the remote, then stopped. Something about the whole situation nagged at him. A half-remembered detail buried under the shock. He rose, crossed to his desk, and opened the drawer where he kept unpaid bills and statements. His hands moved quickly through the stack until he found the one he was looking for, last month's credit card statement. His eyes scanned the list of charges. Gas stations, grocery stores, utility payments. Then one entry leapt out like a blade, Reptile World, $127.50. William's pulse quickened. He had assumed at the time that it was something Monica had purchased for the children. A terrarium, maybe a science kit. He had let it pass like he had let so many things pass. But now, with the image of that hissing box still fresh in his mind, the truth was clear. She had used his card. His own daughter had bought the snake that arrived on his doorstep. He sank back into the chair, the statement trembling in his hands. Angela entered quietly, her eyes red from tears she had tried to hide. "William." He held up the paper. "She bought it. With my card. Look." Angela covered her mouth with her hand. "No. She wouldn't." "Yes," William said firmly. "She would. And she did." For a long moment they stared at each other, the weight of betrayal filling the room like smoke. Angela shook her head slowly. "We have to be sure. We can't accuse her without certainty." William exhaled sharply. "I'll call her." He dialed Monica's number. It rang twice before she answered, her tone bright, too bright, the false cheer that had always preceded another demand. "Hi, Dad. Happy Father's Day. How's your day going?" William kept his voice even. "Interesting morning, actually. Got a surprise delivery." There was the faintest pause, barely a second. Then her voice rushed in smooth and practiced. "Really? What was it?" But before William could reply, another sound drifted across the line. A chuckle, low and amused. He knew that voice. Darius, it was not the laughter of someone hearing new information. It was the laughter of someone who thought his scheme had succeeded. William's grip tightened on the phone. "Just a package mix-up," he said carefully. "Nothing important." "You sure Monica pressed? You sound strange." "Strange." The word scraped against his chest. Strange was what you sounded like when you realized your daughter had tried to terrify you. Strange was what you felt when the man she had married laughed about it in the background. "Everything's fine," William said. "Enjoy your Sunday." He ended the call before his voice could betray the storm raging inside him. He sat motionless, phone still in his hand, until Angela touched his shoulder. Her eyes searched his face. "What did you hear?" Darius Williams said flatly. He laughed. When she asked about the package, he laughed. Angela's breath caught. Her hand trembled against his arm. So it was them. William nodded slowly. It was them. The confirmation hit harder than the suspicion. Knowing for certain stripped away the last threads of denial. His daughter and her husband had sent him a snake. On Father's Day. Angela lowered herself into the chair across from him, her voice barely a whisper. What kind of people do that to their parents? The kind who think money is more important than family, William said. His voice no longer wavered. It carried a hard edge that Angela had rarely heard in their 40 years of marriage. As if to underscore the moment, a faint chime sounded from the baby monitor, sitting forgotten on the bookshelf. Their grandchildren had left it behind during a visit weeks earlier. Angela reached to switch it off, but William raised his hand. Wait. He picked it up and pressed play on the last recording. Static filled the room, then voices emerged, muffled but recognizable. Monica's tone, sharp, urgent. Darius's voice, deeper, laced with irritation. You think he'll give in this time? Monica asked. He'll crack, Darius replied. Then after a pause came the words that froze William's blood. The snake will scare him. Old man won't hold out forever. Angela gasped. William's hands shook as he set the monitor down. It was no longer suspicion. It was proof. Proof recorded in their own careless words. He rose from his chair, a new resolve hardening in his chest. This ends now, he said. Angela looked at him, fear and relief mingling in her eyes. What are you going to do? William walked to the desk, picked up the credit card statement, and slipped it into a folder along with the baby monitor. I'm going to remind them that I am not their bank, and I am not their victim. The air in the room felt heavier, charged with a sense of inevitability. For decades he had given, sacrificed, forgiven. Now the time for indulgence was over. As evening shadows stretched across the living room, William sat at his desk, the glow of the computer screen reflecting in his eyes. His fingers hovered above the keyboard, steady and deliberate. The lifeline he had extended for so long was about to be severed. He thought of Monica as a little girl, her hand tucked in his at the county fair, her laughter echoing above the rides. That child no longer existed. In her place stood a woman who conspired with her husband to terrorize her parents. The baby monitor's words echoed once more in his mind. The snake will scare him. But William was not afraid anymore. He was ready. Night settled over the Johnson house, but William did not sleep. He sat in his office with the blinds drawn, the hum of the computer filling the silence. The folder with the credit card statement and the baby monitor recording lay open beside him. For years he had ignored evidence of his daughter's manipulation, always hoping she would change. Tonight he faced it squarely. He opened the banking portal, his fingers steady. The screen asked for his password, a code he had typed 1,000 times before. This time it felt different. Every keystroke was a declaration that he was done enabling. The credit card account appeared first. Monica's name glared at him from the authorized users list. He remembered when he had added her as a college student, telling himself it was only for emergencies. Those emergencies had stretched into decades until they became her way of life. Remove authorized user, the system asked. William clicked confirm. The words appeared in blue: user access revoked. His heart pounded, but not from fear, from relief. Next came the automatic transfers, monthly deposits into her checking account, insurance payments for her car, and even a gym membership she had convinced him was essential for her health. He canceled each one, line after line, the screen filling with confirmation messages. It was astonishing how quickly 3 decades of enabling could be undone. 30 minutes of focused action erased years of manipulation. Angela appeared at the door, her face pale in the glow of the monitor. "William," she said gently, "are you sure about this?" He looked up at her, his eyes resolute. "I've never been more sure of anything." She stepped closer, resting a hand on his shoulder. "She's still our daughter." "And she sent us a snake," William said. His voice was flat, stripped of sentiment. "That's not desperation, Angela. That's cruelty." Angela's eyes glistened, but she did not argue. She leaned down and kissed the top of his head before leaving him to his task. William turned back to the computer. He changed the PIN numbers on every account. For years, Monica had watched him type, learning his codes through carelessness and trust. No longer. He chose new numbers tied to memories she would never know: the year of his wedding, the street where he grew up. When the final confirmation appeared, he leaned back in his chair, exhaling a breath he had not realized he was holding. For the first time in years, he felt in control. The next morning dawned bright and ordinary, sunlight streaming through the kitchen window. William sipped his coffee slowly, savoring the calm. The phone rang at exactly 8:15. Monica's name lit the screen. He let it ring twice before answering. "Good morning, Monica." Her voice hit like a storm. "Dad, what have you done? My card isn't working. The rent is due, the insurance bounced. What is going on?" William took another sip of coffee before answering. "I know you sent me that Father's Day gift." Silence, then a sharp intake of breath. When she spoke again, her voice had changed from panic to defensive fury. "You've lost your mind. How could you accuse me of something like that?" "You didn't deny it," William said calmly. Her tone rose higher. "This is insane. You can't just cut me off without warning. I have bills, obligations, responsibilities." "Responsibilities," William repeated. "Like treating your parents with respect. Like providing for your own children instead of using them as bargaining chips." Angela moved quietly around the kitchen, watching William's face, her hands frozen mid-task. Monica's voice cracked through the line. "You don't understand. Darius and I are struggling. We need help right now." "You've been struggling for years," William replied. "And every time I fixed it. I sold my car to pay your gambling debts. I covered your rent. I kept your lights on. And you repaid me by sending a live animal to terrify us." "That was just a prank," Monica snapped. William closed his eyes briefly. "A prank with fangs." Her fury boiled over. "You'll regret this. You think you can control me by controlling the money, but you can't. Family doesn't abandon family. Family doesn't terrorize each other either," William said. His voice was steady, almost quiet. "This ends today." The line went dead. William set the phone down gently. The air in the kitchen felt charged, heavy with finality. Angela stood frozen, her eyes searching his face. "She's going to come here," Angela said softly. William nodded. "Probably with Darius. Are you ready for that?" He looked at her, then at the sunlight falling across the table. For decades, he had avoided confrontation, writing checks to keep the peace. That man no longer lived here. Yes, William said. I'm ready. As if summoned by the words, the sound of an engine roared into the driveway. Tires screeched against the pavement. A car door slammed. Then another. Angela's eyes widened. It's them. Heavy footsteps approached the front door, pounding across the porch. The doorbell rang once, sharp and insistent, followed by fists hammering the wood. William rose slowly, his calm unshaken. He glanced at Angela. Stay here. Her voice carried unexpected strength. No. We face this together. The pounding grew louder. William walked to the door, placed his hand on the knob, and prepared to face the storm. The pounding on the front door shook the entire frame. Each thud was a warning, each ring of the bell a demand. William pulled it open slowly, his face set like stone. Monica stood on the porch, her eyes blazing with fury, her hair wild as though she had dressed in haste. Behind her loomed Darius, his shoulders squared, his jaw clenched, a dark shadow in the morning light. Dad, Monica snapped, her voice vibrating with rage. We need to talk. We already talked, William replied evenly. His voice was calm but unyielding. And I was clear. Clear. Monica's laugh was sharp, almost hysterical. You were delusional. You think you can just cut me off because of some silly misunderstanding over a package. There was no misunderstanding, William said. He met her glare without blinking. You sent me a snake. Her lips pressed into a thin line, but she forced out words. That was nothing. A prank. You're blowing it out of proportion. Angela had stepped quietly beside William, her presence steady, though her hands twisted nervously. Monica, a live animal, is not a prank. You could have hurt us. Monica ignored her mother. Her focus burned on William. You sit on piles of money while we drown. You've turned into a greedy old man who cares more about numbers than his own family. Darius moved forward, filling more of the doorway, his smirk taunting. Look, old man, maybe you didn't think this through. Monica has bills. Kids need things. She's your only daughter. What's a few thousand to you? William's stomach turned. The disrespect from a man who had never held steady work was almost worse than his daughter's demands. He kept his voice steady. Children need parents who teach them how to live responsibly. They need examples, not excuses. Angela's voice trembled, but she spoke up. You threatened to keep Jordan and Kayla from us if we didn't give you money. Do you know what that does to them? They're children, not bargaining chips. Monica's face twisted, her words cutting. You leave me no choice. If you won't help us, then you don't get to see them again. They'll grow up knowing their grandfather chose money over family. William's chest tightened, but instead of faltering, he straightened. That's not a threat, he said quietly. That's a blessing. For the first time, Monica faltered. She had expected him to collapse to beg for access to the grandchildren. Instead, his words hit her harder than any refusal of money ever had. If you think teaching children that love is measured in dollars is family, William continued, then they are better off not learning that lesson from you. Her face paled, but Darius stepped closer, his voice low, menacing. We know where you live. We know your schedule. You might want to reconsider before things get ugly. Angela gasped softly, clutching William's arm. But William's gaze did not move. Are you threatening me, Darius? I'm just saying. Darius sneered. You can't shut us out without consequences. You cut us off, don't expect us to disappear quietly. That is exactly what I expect. William said, his voice sharpening. And if you refuse, then this stops being a family dispute and becomes a matter for the police. Darius's smirk faltered. Monica grabbed his arm, her voice rising again, desperate. You can't do this to me. You can't abandon me when I need you most. William's reply was steady. I didn't abandon you. You abandoned yourself when you chose manipulation over honesty. I gave for decades. Now I'm done. You'll regret this, Monica hissed, her voice breaking. You're choosing pride over family. No, William said. I'm choosing survival. I'm choosing peace. For a long moment the porch was heavy with silence, broken only by the faint hum of a car passing on the street. Monica's breathing came fast, her chest rising and falling. Darius's fists clenched, but his eyes flicked toward the small doorbell camera mounted beside the frame. William followed his gaze and spoke firmly. This conversation is recorded. Every word, every threat. If you cross the line again, it won't be me you answer to. It will be the law. Angela drew a sharp breath. Monica's eyes widened as realization hit. She tugged on Darius's arm, but her own fury still burned. You think this little camera makes you safe? It won't protect you forever. It doesn't need to, William replied. I only need it to protect me now. For the first time, Monica's certainty cracked. She looked at her father and saw no trace of the man who had always written a check to smooth things over. This man was finished with compromise. She turned abruptly, storming down the steps. Come on, Darius! Darius lingered for one last glare, the menace in his eyes clear. Then he followed her, the two of them climbing into the car. The engine roared to life, tires screeching as they sped down the street, leaving the smell of burnt rubber in their wake. William closed the door, slowly locking it with deliberate care. He leaned against the frame, letting out a long breath. Angela touched his arm. Her face was pale, but her eyes shimmered with something new, something fierce. Pride. You didn't bend, she whispered. No, William said. His voice was steady, his resolve harder than stone. And I won't. He glanced again at the doorbell camera, its small red light still glowing, proof of everything that had just been said. They'll be back, Angela murmured. I know, William answered. He turned toward his office, the weight of the decision pressing, but no longer suffocating. That's why the next step won't just be us. This time the law will stand with us. The morning after the confrontation, William sat at the kitchen table with his coffee untouched. Angela moved quietly around the room, the soft clatter of dishes failing to mask her worry. Neither of them had slept well. The sound of Monica's threats still echoed in the walls, and the memory of Darius's menacing tone lingered like smoke that refused to clear. William stared out the window, watching sunlight fall across the yard. Children laughed in the distance, a neighbor mowing his lawn, life carrying on as though their own home had not been torn open the day before. He turned to Angela, his voice low but certain. It's time. She set the dish towel down, her hands trembling slightly. Time for what? For protection, he said. For boundaries that cannot be ignored. Angela nodded slowly. She had known this moment would come. Then we should call Margaret. By mid-morning they were seated in the polished office of Margaret Simmons, their longtime attorney. The walls were lined with shelves of thick legal volumes, the faint smell of old paper mixed with lemon polish. Margaret, a composed woman in her 50s with sharp eyes softened by years of experience, listened without interrupting as William described everything. He spoke of the inheritance fight, the shattered mug, the snake in the package, the threats at the doorway. He placed the folder on her desk, sliding forward the credit card statement and the baby monitor that still held the recorded words. Angela added her own account, her voice quivering when she repeated Monica's declaration that the grandchildren would be used as leverage. Margaret folded her hands, her expression grave. William, Angela, what you are describing is not just family tension. This is harassment and intimidation. It has escalated beyond forgiveness. The law has tools to protect you, and I believe it's time to use them. Angela shifted uneasily in her chair. She's still our daughter. Margaret's tone softened, but her words remained firm. And you are still entitled to safety, peace, and dignity. Loving your child does not mean permitting abuse. William leaned forward. What are our options? The first step is restructuring your will, Margaret explained. You mentioned wanting to ensure your grandchildren's future. We can establish an educational trust. It will cover Jordan and Kayla's schooling, tutoring, and legitimate educational needs. The funds will be overseen by an independent trustee. Monica and Darius will have no access. None. Angela's eyes filled with tears, a mixture of sorrow and relief. That means the children will be cared for, even if she tries to block us out. Exactly, Margaret said. And the second step is a restraining order, based on what you've told me, especially the snake incident. You have strong grounds. A court can legally prohibit Monica and Darius from approaching your home or contacting you. Any violation becomes a criminal matter. The word criminal hung in the air like a heavy weight. William exhaled slowly. They crossed a line. If the law is what it takes to protect us, then so be it. Margaret reached for a fresh legal pad, her pen moving quickly. I'll need detailed accounts of every incident. Dates, times, what was said, what was done. The more specific, the stronger the case. William and Angela spent the next hour recounting everything, their voices weaving a painful tapestry of betrayal. Margaret took notes, methodically asking clarifying questions, her calm presence a steady anchor. When they finished, she leaned back, her eyes scanning her notes. We will also file for immediate protection. Given the escalation, a judge will likely grant it quickly. You should prepare yourselves, however. Serving these papers will provoke a reaction. Angela's voice cracked. She'll be furious. Yes, Margaret agreed. But her fury will be contained by law, and that may be the only thing that stops her now. William nodded, his decision solidifying. Do it. Margaret opened a file drawer and withdrew the necessary forms. There's one more thing, she said gently. I recommend adding a clause to the trust. If Monica seeks legitimate treatment for her financial and behavioral issues and maintains documented progress, you may revisit her access to supervised visitation with the children. It provides a path for reconciliation, but only if she chooses it. Angela's hand found William's. Her voice was quiet but hopeful. That sounds fair. It gives her a chance, but not without accountability. William squeezed her hand. If she wants to change, the door is there, but I won't let her destroy us while we wait. Margaret handed them documents to sign. The scratch of William's pen across the paper carried more weight than any check he had ever written. This was not enabling. This was protection. As they prepared to leave, Margaret rose and placed a reassuring hand on William's shoulder. You've made the right decision. Your safety comes first. The paperwork will be filed today. A hearing will follow soon, likely within the week. Back in the car, Angela sat in silence, her hands clasped tightly in her lap. William started the engine but did not drive immediately. He looked over at her, reading the grief in her expression. She's still our daughter, Angela whispered. But I don't recognize her anymore. William reached across the console, his voice steady. Maybe one day she'll find her way back. But until then, we live free of her control. As they pulled away from the granite building, William felt something he had not felt in years, the weight of the future shifting back into his own hands. For decades, he had been a man reacting to his daughter's chaos. Today, he had acted to stop it. That evening they sat together at the kitchen table, the glow of the lamp soft against the fading day. Angela sipped her tea, William his coffee. The quiet between them was no longer suffocating. It was healing. But William knew the storm was not over. Once Monica was served, the fury would come. He pictured her standing in front of a judge, forced to face the consequences of her choices. And he knew the battle would soon move from his doorstep to the courtroom. The courthouse smelled faintly of polish and paper, a mix of tradition and tension. William and Angela sat on a wooden bench outside the courtroom, their hands linked tightly together. Neither spoke. The quiet hum of other cases, the shuffle of lawyers carrying files, and the occasional echo of footsteps down the hall surrounded them, but they were lost in their own thoughts. Margaret arrived briskly, her folders stacked neatly under one arm. She gave them both a reassuring nod. "Remember, just tell the truth. The evidence speaks louder than anything else." Angela clutched her purse close, her face pale. "She's going to hate us." Margaret's voice softened. "She already does. But this isn't about hate. It's about safety." When the bailiff called their case, they rose together. William felt the weight of every step as he entered the courtroom. The space was simple but imposing, the raised bench where the judge sat, the flag to one side, the seal of the state behind him. Judge Carter, a man in his 60s with a stern but steady presence, adjusted his glasses and surveyed the room. "This is the matter of Johnson versus Johnson and Carter, concerning a petition for a restraining order." Monica sat at the respondent's table with Darius beside her. Her arms were crossed, her expression tight, her eyes flashing with anger every time they flicked toward her parents. Darius slouched in his chair, but the arrogance in his posture was unmistakable. William's chest tightened, but he kept his face calm. Margaret rose first. "Your Honor, my clients have endured escalating harassment and intimidation at the hands of their daughter, Monica Johnson, and her husband, Darius Carter. We are requesting a restraining order based on multiple incidents, including threats, financial exploitation, and the delivery of a live animal intended to frighten." The judge raised his brows slightly. "A live animal?" Margaret nodded. "Yes, Your Honor. A corn snake delivered in a package with air holes addressed to William Johnson. It was purchased with his credit card, without authorization." A murmur ran through the small audience at the back of the room. Judge Carter tapped his pen thoughtfully. "Proceed." Margaret gestured toward William. "Mr. Johnson, please take the stand." William rose, his legs heavy, and made his way to the witness chair. After swearing to tell the truth, he sat down, his hands folded tightly in his lap. Margaret began with calm, steady questions. "Mr. Johnson, can you describe the events that led you to file this petition?" William spoke slowly, each word heavy but clear. He described the argument in his living room. Monica's demands, the coffee cup shattering on the floor. He told of the package that arrived on Father's Day, the hissing from within, the fear that swept through him and Angela as they waited for the police. He lifted the credit card statement and handed it to Margaret, who submitted it as evidence. "And what did you later discover on the baby monitor?" Margaret asked. William's jaw tightened. A recording of Darius saying, "The snake will scare him. The old man won't hold out forever." Gasps rippled through the gallery. Monica's face flushed crimson, and she shifted uncomfortably. Darius leaned back in his chair, his jaw flexing, but his smirk gone. Margaret played the recording aloud. The static gave way to the muffled voices, then the damning words. The judge leaned forward, his eyes sharp. "Mr. Johnson," he said carefully, "you are telling me that your daughter and her husband conspired to send you a live animal with the intent to frighten you into giving them money?" "Yes, Your Honor," William said. His voice did not waver. "And they threatened to withhold our grandchildren if we did not comply." Angela was called next. Her testimony was soft but powerful. She described the night they were told they would never see their grandchildren again. The pounding on the front door, the fear that had lingered ever since. Tears shimmered in her eyes, but her voice remained steady. Finally, Margaret submitted the footage from the doorbell camera. The video played on a monitor showing Monica and Darius standing on the porch, their voices clear. The threats, the accusations, the warnings, every word preserved in digital memory. Judge Carter sat back heavily in his chair. He removed his glasses, rubbed the bridge of his nose, then replaced them. Ms. Johnson. Mr. Carter, do you have anything to say in your defense? Monica stood abruptly, her chair scraping loudly. He's twisting everything. He's making me sound like a monster. I just wanted help. I just wanted my father to care. By sending a snake, the judge asked dryly. Her words stumbled. It was just a joke that got out of hand. Darius rose beside her, his voice sharp. This is family business, Your Honor. He has no right to drag us into court. The judge's eyes hardened. When family business escalates into intimidation, theft, and threats, it becomes the court's business. He shuffled the papers before him. I find sufficient grounds to grant the restraining order. Monica Johnson and Darius Carter are prohibited from contacting or approaching William and Angela Johnson for a period of 3 years. Any violation will result in criminal charges. Monica gasped audibly, her eyes wide. 3 years, Darius muttered something under his breath, his fists clenching. The bailiff stepped closer, his presence a reminder that the law was no longer on their side. The gavel struck once, sharp and final. This hearing is adjourned. As the courtroom emptied, William sat in silence, the relief washing over him like a tide. He had not wanted this. He had not wanted any of it. But now, for the first time in years, he felt as though the ground beneath his feet was steady again. Angela reached for his hand, her fingers squeezing gently. It's over, she whispered. William nodded, though in his heart he knew it was not truly over. Restraining orders were just paper. Monica's anger would not vanish with a judge's decree, and Darius's glare across the courtroom had promised more to come. When they stepped out into the sunlight, Margaret walked beside them. You've taken the right step, she said, but be vigilant. These things rarely end quietly. William looked up at the clear blue sky, the courthouse doors closing behind him. For the first time in a long time, he felt the law on his side. But as the memory of Darius's dark expression lingered, he knew the night ahead might bring more than silence. 2 nights after the court hearing, the Johnson house lay still beneath a velvet sky. The neighborhood was quiet, the kind of quiet that magnifies every creak of wood and rustle of leaves. Angela had finally drifted into restless sleep, her breathing soft and uneven beside William. But he remained awake, staring at the ceiling, replaying the courtroom scene in his mind. The judge's gavel had given them protection on paper, but William knew anger was not erased by a signature. Darius's glare had been a warning, a promise that consequences would follow. Just after midnight, the faint crunch of tires on gravel reached William's ears. He sat up instantly. Their street was not a place for late-night visitors. He slipped from bed, careful not to wake Angela, and moved to the window. Headlights flashed briefly before cutting out. A dark sedan sat at the curb, its engine ticking softly. The hair on the back of William's neck prickled. He reached for the baseball bat he kept behind the bedroom door, then thought better of it and picked up his phone instead. Downstairs, the doorbell camera's small red light glowed. William tapped into the feed on his phone. The grainy screen showed movement. A tall figure stepped onto the porch, broad shoulders unmistakable even in the dim light. Darius. William's pulse thudded in his ears. He pressed record, ensuring every second would be saved. The figure leaned close to the door, muttering something too faint to hear. Then came the rattling of the doorknob. Slow at first, then harder, as though testing the lock. Angela stirred upstairs, her voice drowsy. "William." "What is it? Stay in bed," he whispered back. "It's Darius." The sound of metal scraping against metal sent a shiver through him. Darius was trying to force the lock. William's hands shook as he dialed 911. 911, what's your emergency?" "This is William Johnson," he whispered. "There's a man on my porch trying to break in. We have a restraining order against him. His name is Darius Carter. Stay calm, sir. Officers are on their way. Do not engage. Is your door secure?" "Yes," William said, his voice tight. "The camera is recording him now." "Good. Stay where you are. Help is coming." William ended the call and clutched the phone like a lifeline. He kept his eyes on the feed. Darius stepped back from the door, his face illuminated briefly by the porch light. His expression was twisted with rage, lips moving in words William could not hear but could imagine. Suddenly, headlights washed over the driveway. A patrol car pulled in, silent but swift. Darius spun, startled, and bolted toward his car. The officers leapt out, shouting commands. Within seconds, Darius was pinned against the hood of his sedan, his arms wrenched behind his back. Angela had come to the top of the stairs, her hand over her mouth. They caught him. William nodded, his chest rising and falling in sharp relief. They caught him. The officers escorted Darius to the cruiser, his voice raised in angry protests that carried clearly through the night air. "This is family business. You can't do this to me," but the law was no longer his to mock. The restraining order had transformed his threats into crimes, and now he would answer for them. An officer approached the porch, his tone professional but reassuring. "Mr. Johnson." "Mrs. Johnson, we've taken Mr. Carter into custody for violating the protective order and attempting unlawful entry. You'll need to provide a statement tomorrow, but for tonight, you're safe." William's shoulders sagged with relief. "Thank you, officer." The patrol car pulled away, red and blue lights fading into the darkness. Angela descended the stairs slowly, her legs trembling. She wrapped her arms around William, holding him tightly. "I was so afraid," she whispered. "It's over for tonight," William said, his voice steadying. "And now it's on record. They can't call this a misunderstanding anymore." Hours later, after Angela returned to bed, William sat alone at the kitchen table. The silence felt heavier now, not from fear, but from the realization of how far things had fallen. His daughter had once begged him to build her dollhouses, to carry her on his shoulders at the county fair. Now her husband had tried to force his way into their home. The phone on the table buzzed suddenly. William flinched before picking it up. A voicemail notification blinked. Unknown number. He pressed play. Static filled the line, then Monica's voice emerged, shaky, broken. "Dad, I'm sorry. I didn't know it would go this far. I never meant for it to happen like this. Darius kept saying we needed to scare you, that it was the only way. I don't know what to do anymore. Please, I don't know who I am anymore." The message ended abruptly, leaving William staring at the phone, his breath caught in his chest. Angela's footsteps came softly from the hallway. "What is it?" she asked. William held up the phone. His voice was quiet, filled with a mix of sorrow and resolve. It was Monica. "She sounds trapped. But it doesn't change what she allowed." Angela's eyes welled with tears. "Maybe she's asking for help." Maybe William said. He set the phone down carefully, his hand lingering on it. but help only matters if she wants to change. The clock ticked steadily, marking the passage of another night, torn apart by choices that could never be undone. William rose from his chair and looked out the window, the first gray light of dawn breaking along the horizon. He knew another confrontation was coming, but this time it would not be on his doorstep in the dark. It would be face to face with the truth laid bare in a setting where manipulation could not hide. The mediation room was smaller than the courtroom, but it carried its own kind of weight. A round table sat in the center, flanked by plain chairs, a pitcher of water and legal pads placed neatly in front of each seat. The fluorescent lights hummed faintly overhead, casting an even glow that left no corner in shadow. William and Angela sat side by side, their hands folded on the table. Margaret sat just to William's right, her presence steady and professional. Across from them, Monica entered with hesitant steps. Her eyes were rimmed with exhaustion, her clothes chosen without care. Darius was absent. The restraining order forbade him from attending. For the first time in months, William saw his daughter without her husband at her side. The mediator, a calm woman in her 40s with a practiced voice, greeted them all and laid out the purpose of the session. We are not here to relive the past. We are here to find a way forward, if one exists. Each of you will have a chance to speak, and we will listen without interruption. Monica's gaze darted between her parents, her lips pressed tightly together. When it was her turn to speak, her voice cracked. Dad. Mom. I know I messed up. I didn't think it would go that far. Darius said the snake would scare you, that it would make you finally give in. I didn't stop him. I should have. Angela's eyes glistened, but she remained silent, her fingers gripping William's hand. William studied his daughter, searching for traces of the little girl who once clung to his leg when thunder frightened her. He saw only a woman hollowed by choices, her voice dripping with excuses. You allowed it, William said quietly. You didn't just look away. You were part of it. Monica's tears spilled. I thought I had no choice. We're buried in debt. He said we had to do something drastic. I was desperate. The mediator raised a hand gently. This is where we talk about accountability and options. William, what is it you want from this meeting? William leaned forward, his voice firm but even. I want boundaries. For too long, I was her safety net. Every crisis I caught her before she hit the ground. That ends today. If she wants a relationship with us, and if she wants her children to know their grandparents, there must be conditions. Monica blinked rapidly, her face a mixture of fear and disbelief. Conditions, yes, William said. You need treatment. Not just apologies, not just promises, real help. 90 days in a financial recovery and counseling program. Documentation, progress reports. Proof that you are doing the work. Until then, there is no access to money and no unsupervised access to us or the children. Angela's voice was gentle but resolute. We want to see Jordan and Kayla, but we won't be manipulated anymore. If you want us in their lives, you have to change first. Monica's mouth opened, then closed again. She shook her head, her hair falling into her eyes. You're asking me to go to rehab like I'm some kind of addict. William's tone sharpened. Addiction comes in many forms. Gambling, spending, manipulation. You've treated us like an ATM for years. That ends now. This is not punishment. This is a chance. The mediator scribbled notes, then looked at Monica. This is an opportunity to rebuild trust. Without it, the court orders stand and you remain cut off. With it, there is a possibility of healing. Monica buried her face in her hands, her shoulders trembling. For a long time, the room was filled only with her muffled sobs. Finally, she lifted her head, her voice hoarse. What if I fail? What if I can't do it? William's gaze softened, but did not waver. Then you live with the consequences of your choices, just like now. But if you try, truly try, you might earn back what you've lost. Angela reached across the table, her hand hovering near Monica's. We love you, but love without boundaries isn't love at all. It's destruction. We want to see you rise, not sink. Monica's chin trembled. She looked at the mediator, then back at her parents. 90 days, she whispered. I'll try. Margaret leaned in, her tone calm. We'll put it in writing. The trust fund for Jordan and Kayla remains protected. The restraining order remains in place against Darius. You commit to 90 days of treatment. That is the path forward. The mediator nodded, her voice steady. This is not a guarantee of reconciliation. It is a first step. The responsibility is yours, Monica. Monica slumped in her chair, drained but resigned. For the first time, she did not argue. She simply nodded. The session ended with signatures on paper, each stroke of the pen heavy with years of pain. William stood slowly, his back stiff, his eyes lingering on his daughter. He saw the spark of the girl she once was flicker faintly beneath the exhaustion. Whether it could grow again was not his decision to make. As they left the building, Angela's hand found William's. Do you think she meant it? William exhaled slowly, the afternoon sun warming his face. I think she's scared. And sometimes fear is the only thing that wakes us up. They walked toward their car, the sound of traffic echoing down the street. The paperwork in William's hand felt heavier than any burden he had carried before, but it also carried hope. Still deep inside, he knew one truth remained. 90 days could change everything, or it could change nothing at all. The choice now belonged to Monica. And as he opened the car door, William braced himself for the final chapter of this long battle, the moment when all their choices would either heal or finally sever what was left of their family. The weeks that followed were quieter than William had dared to hope. The house no longer echoed with late-night phone calls or desperate knocks at the door. Instead, the rhythms of ordinary life returned, morning coffee shared in silence. Evening walks around the neighborhood, the small rituals of peace reclaimed. Monica began her 90-day program. Reports arrived from the center brief but steady, confirming she was attending sessions and completing assignments. Angela read each update with a cautious hope, her eyes searching for signs of the daughter she once knew. William read them too, but he kept his heart guarded. He had lived long enough to know that promises and beginnings were easy. Follow-through was harder. Jordan and Kayla were allowed short, supervised visits. The first time the children ran into Angela's arms, laughter spilling out like sunlight. William felt a weight lift from his chest. They played on the living room rug, their voices filling the space where arguments once reigned. For those brief hours, the house felt whole again. Yet William never forgot the danger of slipping back into old patterns. He kept the trust fund secure, the boundaries firm. He reminded himself and Angela that love without accountability was no love at all. When Monica called one evening to thank them for believing in her, his voice was warm but steady. We believe in who you can become, not in the mistakes you've made. One night as Angela prepared tea, William stood at the window watching the quiet street. He thought of the battles they had endured, the inheritance fight, the snake in the package, the courtroom, the midnight intrusion. Each memory was heavy, but together, they had forged something stronger than fear. Angela joined him, slipping her hand into his. "Do you think she'll make it?" she asked softly. William looked at the stars, their cold brilliance steady above. That's her choice. But whatever happens, we're free. We drew the line and we kept it. For the first time in years, he believed that tomorrow could arrive without dread. He would not measure his life in the weight of his daughter's crises. Instead, he would live each day with Angela, savoring peace, trusting that boundaries had given them back what manipulation had stolen. And if Monica found her way home, it would be on different terms. Respect, honesty, and accountability, nothing less. True family love is not about endless sacrifice or silent endurance. It is about respect, responsibility, and the courage to set boundaries. When parents stop enabling destruction, they protect both themselves and their children. Boundaries are not rejection. They are the doorway to real healing and lasting connection.